Major new developments involving former President Donald J. Trump. Trump saying today he expects to be arrested on Tuesday and is calling for protests. He made the announcement today on his social media post, lashing out at the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, which has invited him to testify before a grand jury. The arrest would be part of their investigation into alleged hush money payments to Stormy Daniels during the 2016 election. Again, if there is an arrest, that's according to Trump. Trump also called for protests over his pending arrest to, quote, take our nation back. This development comes as sources tell CNN that law enforcement agencies in New York are also now preparing for the possible indictment of Trump. CNN's Polo Sandoval is outside the Manhattan Criminal Courthouse for us, and we can also begin with CNN senior crime and justice reporter Katelyn Polantz. So, Katelyn, to you first in Washington, what more do we know about this possible arrest that the former president is announcing on his social media post?
Well, Fred, when and what is going to be charged, if it is charged? We don't have the answer to that yet, and neither does Donald Trump. At this point in time, his team, through a spokesman, has made very clear that there has been no notification made to him or his lawyers that he is going to be indicted or when that indictment is going to happen. However, Trump is very aware of the politics of this and the bluster and the bully pulpit that he has. And so he is agitating for his team to try and get his base riled up. He did say in that post about protests, asking his supporters to protest in some way. He also is sending a message to the New York District Attorney Alvin Bragg. And if we step back for a second, Fred, the reason that there is this expectation of Donald Trump that he will be indicted in New York by the DA is that the long investigation into the Trump Organization and payments made to Stormy Daniels for hushing her about an alleged affair she says that she had with the former president. Those investigation, that is nearing the end. We know that because there was an invitation to Trump himself to come into the grand jury and testify. He declined to do that. We do understand through our reporting this morning that another witness is expected to testify before the grand jury on Monday, so it does not appear they've returned an indictment at this point that would cause Trump to come in and turn himself over that quickly. However, it does appear we are in the end stage of this, and the grand jury will be reviewing the evidence and at some point, very likely voting on whether the former president of the United States should be indicted. Fred?
All right. Thanks so much, Katelyn. Now let's go to Polo Sandoval outside the Manhattan courthouse of Polo. What can you tell us about any preparations by law enforcement agencies that might be taking place, especially after the former president will make that announcement via post?
Yeah, Fred, still with many questions about the when. They certainly don't want any question about the how they would handle all of this. And that's why you have these conversations that, according to our colleague John Miller, are ongoing among local, state, and federal law enforcement officials that are in close contact with also officials at the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. The crux of the conversations there, exactly how to navigate this scenario with a potential indictment, and then also the choreography that would come involved with potential charges being filed against the former president. And that's why these conversations have been happening. And in this post-January 6th world, you better believe that courthouse security is one of the big parts of the conversations that are happening right now, with law enforcement officials privy to the discussions saying that they are preparing for potential demonstrations for pro-Trump demonstrators to come together here in Lower Manhattan, and the potential of any possible clashing with anti-Trump demonstrators. And so this is certainly something that is top of mind behind the scenes as they prepare for the coming days. And certainly also the U.S. Secret Service having their separate discussions about how it would work in terms of getting the former president to Manhattan, getting processed, getting potentially booked here when and if that indictment is announced. And this is a routine, Fred, that we should mention is certainly not unusual for the New York state court system here, but it's certainly, because of the complexities that come with this, it certainly would rise to the level of being unprecedented as we prepare for the coming days. Fred?
Right, and that involving a former president. Polo Sandoval, Katelyn Polantz, thanks so much. We'll check back with you throughout the afternoon. Let's talk more about this right now with Elliot Williams. He is a former federal prosecutor and a CNN legal analyst. Elliot, good to see you. So what do you make of the former president who would say this via his social media post Do you believe that he has any particular intel that says he might be arrested on Tuesday?
Well, let's look at the good, the bad, and the ugly of it, right, Fred? Look, the truth is he might have received heads up from law enforcement that he had a surrender date as of whatever day, whether it was Tuesday or Wednesday, and that he had to turn himself into law enforcement by then or face an arrest, right? Now, that's if this were all working normally and accurately, of course, that would be how prosecutors and law enforcement in New York would handle it. Or he's just making it up based on things that he read in the newspaper. And there's no way to know either of those things. But to be clear, and this is to Paulo's point, there's nothing novel about a defendant getting a call from law enforcement prior to being asked to turn himself or herself in.
Okay, so then on that first point then, when you say, you know, there may be a surrender date and then it might say you face arrest, you know, if you don't comply. So what is usually the gap between that? If he did receive a, you know, surrender date notice of a Tuesday, if he didn't comply right away, then would that mean a matter of hours within the same day or days?
Within a day. I mean, I'm sorry about that. It's within a day. It would be your surrender date's Tuesday. We can arrest you starting what, you know, maybe it lists a time, 5 p.m. and at 5:01 p.m. you're subject to arrest. Now they may reach out to your attorney or they may try to get you to come in, but no, you are subject to being arrested by, this would be, you know, NYPD cops or whomever else as soon as that surrender moment or date passes.
Okay, so any potential indictment, you know, or arrest would stem from the probe of Trump's alleged hush money payment to former adult film star Stormy Daniels. Are we talking about a misdemeanor or felony?
It could be either. You know, under New York state law, there is I'm admitted to practice in New York. There's a misdemeanor for business record violations. He could be charged with that. If in fact those business record sort of lying or misrepresenting on business records was in furtherance of committing a crime, which here might be campaign finance or campaign violations, then it bumps up to a felony with a 4-year maximum prison sentence. So, but it's just hard to know. And this is to Caitlin Polance's point earlier in the segment. We don't really know, other than what's sort of leaked out, what the former president might be being investigated for right now.
All right, so I'm going to have to ask you, you know, put into context a lot of this, because the indictment and, you know, or a potential indictment and potential arrest of a former president for criminal charges, you know, is unprecedented. But help people understand kind of the journey here, because it's been a case, you know, of a very long time. It was the beginning of his presidency during the campaign when a lot of this came to light. So what does this tell you about now potentially there might be an arrest or surrender date? What does that tell you about the case potentially and the path it's been on?
Yeah, absolutely. The events of this case stretch back 6 or 7 years. It's not like someone commits a crime yesterday and you go and arrest them. So number one, it's a very long saga if it ends up in an arrest or a prosecution over what might be a misdemeanor that happened 6 or 7 years ago. Now, certainly there's a great deal of public interest in the matter. But it is a relatively older matter. But again, it's significant. And it's also logistically complicated, I think, to arrest a president of the United States. You got Secret Service everywhere tracking his. So all of this creates a bit of a mess, both legally but sort of practically.
Oh my gosh, then that brings me to, would Secret Service assist in his surrendering?
What they should. They would receive, again, we've never seen this before, but they would receive notification from the New York's, whether it's the state troopers, the NYPD, about, we intend to have this person surrender himself or get arrested on this date. And law enforcement agencies talk to each other all the time about such things. Now, again, you don't ever really see the circumstance of a former president being arrested, but that's how it would work if it were working correctly.